Good morning. I'm Candace Carr Strauss, President and CEO of the Sedona Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here with us today. I'd like to take a minute to introduce all of our board members who are here in the audience with us. I hope I saw everyone. We have Al Camillo, our current board chair. If you could just raise your hands, that would be terrific. Thank you. Lonnie Lilly, our past chair. Jennifer Perry, who is our chair-elect. Gary Glenn, who is taking photos and making us all look so good right here in the audience. And who am I missing? Have I missed anybody? Oh, Jesse Alexander is back there as well. Perfect. Thank you all for being here. In addition, we have a big team from the Sedona Chamber today. Our crew was out front taking a fun photo. It's always good, I think, to take a minute to celebrate small victories, and we added 2 new staffers on Monday. Eric Nguyen right here is our new social media and content manager. So super excited to have him with us. So you'll see us a lot more active on social and getting important messages out to all of you. In addition to Sierra Klabundi, who is in front, she's our new events manager. And so you'll be hearing a lot more from her as we move forward with our inaugural International Women's Day Leadership Awards Luncheon on March 8th. So thanks so much for that. A few other administrative details. The restrooms are out in the lobby. If you exit the door and go to the right, you'll encounter first the women's, and then the men's is a bit further down and around the corner. And in addition, like I said, we will be recording. So thank you. So with that, I would love to welcome to the stage Mackenzie Rogers, who's Northern Arizona Division Director for APS, our sponsor, who has made this event possible today. And I want to we got to learn how to drive there we go. Look at that.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Candace. So I just want to thank you guys. I'll be really brief. I just want to thank you all for coming to this awesome Sedona Chamber event. On behalf of your friends at APS, we are really proud to help support meaningful community events, especially ones where we can see the community come together for shared objectives. And to talk about shared objectives. So this event is a perfect example of that. So with that, I hope you guys enjoy today, and thank you again for being here and giving APS the opportunity to support meaningful events like this. So thank you.
So as a 3C chamber, the Sedona Chamber of Commerce is a catalyst, a convener, and a champion. We're a catalyst for business growth, a convener of community leaders and stakeholders, which this event today is an example, and we're a champion for a thriving community. We're where people, policy, and place come together to create community, and working in partnership with our representatives from the City of Sedona, who this morning we're very lucky to have with us Mayor Moriarty, Vice Mayor Jablow, Karen Osborne, our city manager, and Joanne Keene, our assistant city manager, all to participate in today's event, and Megan too. Our partnership under the Sustainable Tourism Plan, the first Arizona Sustainable Tourism Plan, was adopted in 2019 and continues to be the umbrella that we work under in partnership to try to address what we're currently seeing right now, unprecedented tourism levels in spite of a pandemic. What are we as the chamber doing right now with respect to that? Really falls in 4 buckets. And this is really a benefit for people who are not here who can read this slide, so I don't expect you all to read the slide. I'm going to give you a little bit of highlights. It's advocacy for a positive business climate that we're working related to that policy on a local, state, and federal level. An example of this is there is a housing working group committee meeting later today from 3 to 5, which we will be present because our businesses are struggling with workforce due to the lack of available housing, lack of affordable housing, and we need to be a voice for them to say to the city how important housing is for a thriving community. In addition, our destination stewardship under that Sustainable Tourism Plan, you'll hear from a number of speakers later today about these mitigation programs in detail, but just to show that we are working in partnership with these different leaders on these issues. With Ranger Tinderholt and her team, the Red Rock Oak Creek Recreation Assessment is a forthcoming project that you will be hearing more about in the months to come. Our Red Rock OHV Conservation Crew, which is the convening of 12 private businesses, along with Tread Lightly, to work in partnership, again, with the Forest Service and the city to mitigate impacts of our ATVs. The Sedona Trail Keepers 2.0 program. I'm so happy to announce publicly today that we have signed up 52 businesses to reinstate the Sedona Trail Keepers 2.0 program. This former program of 5 years brought nearly $400,000 to trail enhancements in partnership with the Sedona Red Rock Trail Fund and also the U.S. Forest Service. We have instituted trash service as well as toilets at the Dry Creek and Soldiers Pass trailheads respectively, and that will continue a temporary basis until permanent things are done and being worked on at the moment. Our Fly Friendly Agreement, which is a noise abatement mitigation program, and working with the airport and our private helicopter tour operators for quality of life for our residents. The Sedona Verde Valley Tourism Council, which really tries to share all of the amazing experiences throughout the greater Verde Valley with our Sedona visitors and guests to encourage them to experience those. And last but not least, the Verde Shuttle and forthcoming Sedona Shuttle, which we will hear quite a bit about from Robert Weber here in a moment. And then our other two buckets are regional governance facilitation. As most of you know, we're a pretty complex ecosystem in that we have the city of Sedona. We have 2 counties that we cross in both Yavapai and Coconino County. We have many unincorporated areas from Oak Creek Canyon to the village of Oak Creek, down to Cornville and others, as well as then our state overlay and federal. So it's meetings like these that we can bring all of those stakeholders together for you to help you understand what everyone is working on your behalf. And lastly is our commitment to workforce, which I touched on with our housing meeting later today. We're working with Yavapai College, who we have here, to ensure that our workforce is skilled, upskilled, and addressing the needs of our labor force right now. Providing that training, leadership development with Verde Valley Leadership in partnership with that group, housing, as I mentioned now twice, childcare, which is another issue, and we are here at the grace of the Sedona School District, and they've done an amazing job with the Bobcat Club before and after school program, and then lastly, transportation, and the first part being the Verde Shuttle, and now with hopefully very soon, the Sedona Shuttle will kind of close the loop on that. So that's what we as your Sedona Chamber are working on your behalf. And with that, I want to turn the presentation over to Robert Weber, who is the City of Sedona Public Transit Administrator, who's going to talk about what's on everyone's mind with respect to the forthcoming Sedona Shuttle and subsequent microtransit system, but also the Sedona in Motion plan over the next almost decade. So with that, Robert, I'll hand you the tools to drive.
Great. I'd like to thank the Chamber and APS for sponsoring this event and for inviting us, the city, to talk a little bit about our transit program here in Sedona. When I arrived here about a year ago from Monterey County, I was the Chief Operating Officer for the transit district there for about 20 years. And when I arrived here, I started to realize that the community thought the discussion about transit started and ended with me, which actually is not the case. Public transit has been discussed, planned, and contemplated in this community for probably 2 decades. But most recently, it started with the community plan, the current community plan, which is currently under review, approximately 8 years ago. Community plan drives all other plans in most cities, as it does here. But as you can see, that public transit, while it's not the core of all these plans, it is an element in each of these plans and is supported by each of these plans. The community plan, the master transportation plan, the municipal sustainability plan, the climate action plan, and the sustainable tourism plan. Public transit is an element in all of these plans. So it goes well beyond my arrival and my involvement. I've been hired to begin to implement this system. The original plan, which is the Sedona Area Implementation Plan, It was a 10-year plan which had 4 phases and 4 elements within that plan, 10 years to implement. That's how it was originally thought to, as they began the planning process. It originally contemplated 3 core routes, 7 trailhead shuttles, 1 fixed route to Oak Creek Canyon, and then an ADA paratransit service. That's a complimentary service that is run for individuals with disabilities who are unable to use the regular fixed route services. So that was kind of the overall game plan. 10 years, 4 phases, and I should mention that trailhead shuttles probably were not even contemplated till 5 years from today. So here's some of the benefits, obviously, of public transit. It's increasing mobility options. It's providing connectivity to the village of Oak Creek Canyon, of course, Sedona proper, reducing parking impacts, reduce traffic congestion, offsetting carbon emissions, all of those good things come with public transit. Public transit is not the silver bullet for all this, but it is a mitigating element, a part of a broader strategy that can help to realize some of these benefits. So I was hired to begin to implement this plan. Again, trailhead shuttles weren't contemplated till 5 years from now. And then this happened. And this happened, I think it continued to grow momentum, and then with the pandemic, the nation has seen visitation to public lands increase by over 35%, not just in Sedona, nationwide. But Sedona has certainly felt that, and the slide here can illustrate, some of the effects that have occurred here locally. So we shifted gears. Excuse me. We shifted gears. We took that 10-year plan and we reprioritized, working with the city manager. She asked me, I want to say the first week I was on the job, would it be possible to implement trailhead shuttles by next spring? And we're just about at next spring, next month. I said, well, let's give it a go. So that's really been my focus since I landed here in Sedona. The other thing too, about the situation with the trailheads, absolutely the residents that live near the trailheads are heavily impacted. There's garbage, there's noise. The Forest Service is very concerned about the ecosystem. It is a fragile environment. All of those things are true. But in my background, 20 years in public transit, and prior to that, 25 years in emergency medical services, I tend to have a different lens. And when I go up and look at these trailheads, I see this as overarching a public safety issue. You have distracted pedestrians. You have distracted drivers. You have people parking on roadways that simply are not designed for them. All of these things are happening. The pedestrians are attempting to wayfind their way up to the trailhead. The drivers, frustrated, unable to park, they're trying to wayfind to find the next place to park. And I've witnessed this. At Dry Creek, I've witnessed it at Cathedral, and it's just not a good situation from a public safety standpoint, particularly with pedestrians on these roadways. In public transit operators call distracted pedestrians petextrians, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're not paying attention, the drivers aren't paying attention, and part of this trailhead shuttle program is to mitigate some of these issues and provide a much safer environment, for our residents and our visitors to visit our trailheads. So, with that said, what is contemplated are 4 separate routes for these trailhead shuttles. We have 3 of the routes from Posse Grounds Park. That'll be the Posse Grounds Park and Ride. Well, let me just call it Posse Grounds Park and Ride. We'll have service to Soldiers Pass, Dry Creek, and then Mescal later this summer. Currently, the Forest Service is building out a parking area there with a built-in shuttle, stop, and turnabout. So that is out of the Posse Grounds Park and Ride. The second location is off of 179 near Bowstring Drive. We are calling that the North SR 179 Park and Ride. That will support shuttle service to Cathedral Rock and to Little Horse. The overall timeline, originally we were hoping to have this in place by March 10th in time for spring break. But of course, we picked a great time to do this. We're in 2 years of a worldwide pandemic. We've got labor issues, we've got supply chain issues, all of those things that are working against us, so that is pushing back our clock a little bit. Right now, it's looking more like we will have these services online in late March, potentially early April, but I don't see it going much beyond that. It's sort of a day-to-day, call me tomorrow, I'll have a different answer. So, anyway, so these are the Trailhead Shuttle park and rides, which, as mentioned, we have the Posse Grounds Trailhead Shuttle Park and Ride. That is located at the new parking lot that is just finishing up construction up there. You can see there where the actual shuttle stop will be. The second location is at Bowstring, and again, that's at 179 in Bowstring. Approximately, we're going to hold about 65 cars at this lot and provide 15-minute frequency from here to Cathedral Rock and Little Horse. A couple of things to mention on the Trailhead shuttles. They are free and open to the general public. They're fully ADA accessible. They have bike racks and can accommodate bikes and that type of, for that community. That is what's right in front of me and the city as far as the first deployment. The second deployment, again, we're pushed back on this one. I was hoping to do them both at the same time, but due to supply chain issues with the vehicle manufacturers, we are looking like we will be delayed for the second piece, the microtransit piece, back into late next fall, possibly October, I'm hoping. What is microtransit? Microtransit is a app-enabled demand response service that works within a predefined zone. That the zone that you're looking at there represents 3/4 of a mile either side of 89A, up through Uptown and up to the Western Gateway. So anyone in that zone, again, this is free. This is open to the general public, although we will be contemplating a fare for the service, unless you're booking a trip to one of the Trailhead Shuttle park and rides, in which case that'll be a free fare zone. There'll be no fare charged, either coming or going from those locations. But if you want to use the service to go anywhere else within the zone, to Tlaquepaque, Uptown, Hillside, there will be a fare, and that is currently under review with city staff, and eventually would be a recommendation will go to the city council on that fare. It's app-enabled. You download the app, you can summon the vehicle, you can schedule the vehicle, you can see the vehicle actually coming to you. You can also pay, you can buy a digital pass, so when you board the service, you can just scan your phone and your fare is paid once we determine what the fare is. And then what's nice about this app is you can switch screens and you can get real-time information on the Trailhead shuttles. What I mean by that is which ones are running on time, which ones might be slightly delayed, and you can actually physically watch, through GPS, you can track the Trailhead shuttles as well as your microtransit vehicle, and you can time your connections to both. So that is microtransit in a nutshell. We're looking at 4 vehicles in service. covering that zone that I had on the screen here a couple minutes ago. The microtransit will operate, I failed to mention with the trailhead shuttles, both trailhead shuttles and microtransit will operate Thursday through Sunday, approximately between 7:30 a.m. till 7 p.m. for the microtransit and 8 to 6:30 for the trailhead shuttles. It was designed that way so people could connect using the microtransit. You could connect to the first outbound trailhead shuttle trips, and then you can connect to the last inbound trailhead shuttle trip so you can get back to your residence or back to your hotel. On demand, talked about that. I didn't have a slide on the vehicle for the trailhead shuttles. Those vehicles are slightly larger than this one. Those vehicles will accommodate 20 passengers. They're hybrid electric. And right now they're sitting in Phoenix getting equipment put on them. This is what we have on order for the microtransit vehicles. These are actually designed by a transit operator, which is kind of a first. Usually vehicle manufacturers in this space, they just sort of design the vehicles in a vacuum and then think later to call us and go, hey, what do you think? Well, this was actually designed by a transit operator working with 2 different manufacturers. This is a 10-passenger vehicle. It's low floor, which gives it easy access for individuals with disabilities. It's fully ADA accessible. You can transport 2 wheelchairs, and 8 individuals are the wheelchair positions they convert, and you can transport 10 individuals not requiring a wheelchair. So again, we'll have 4 of these in service. We'll have 1 spare, and we hope to see this service operational by October of 2022. And again, it's all supply chain issues that we're at the mercy of. I just went through, in I don't know how many minutes here, short-range transit planning. I'm going to switch gears real quick here and have a couple slides on long-range transit planning, because we do want to get back to that 10-year plan. The trailhead shuttles, absolute priority, the microtransit to support that service. But really, we need, I've been hired to keep an eye on the entire long-range plan for this city. So without a maintenance and operations facility, it gets very difficult to expand the service much beyond what I've already presented to you. We don't have the support. We don't have the trained technicians to support our vehicles. Right now, we're going to be outsourcing our maintenance clear to Camp Verde. That's 35 minutes from here. That is not a good way to conduct transit business, at least in my experience. So we are looking to build a maintenance and operations facility. The proposed site for this facility would be out at the wastewater treatment plant, sited right next to a solar power plant that's currently in existence. So that brown area there, that is the proposed site for this future maintenance and operations facility. Sited right next to it is an existing solar power farm. It's sitting on city land. The city leases that land to the private energy firm that operates that solar array. However, that array is underproducing, and what they do produce, we use some of it at the wastewater treatment plant, but a lot of it's being sold back to APS. What we would like to do is build what's called a microgrid. A microgrid essentially would be using that renewable energy produced by the solar array and charging, for lack of better words, if you could imagine, banks, huge banks of underground battery stores. So these batteries are recharged using solar energy, and keeping with our sustainability plan, the city's future transit fleet would be battery electric. So the idea here is to use fully renewable energy to recharge a zero-emission battery electric fleet to serve Sedona. Again, this is long range. This takes a lot of federal money. It's going to take some local money. It's going to take a lot of planning and consultants and design and construction and working with APS. We've had some initial conversations with them about this. They're excited about this idea. But more than that, this facility would be a regional asset. Cottonwood, they don't have a maintenance and operations facility either to support their transit system. So there is some initial interest from them. I can't commit to what Cottonwood will or will not do, but there's some initial interest in this project from them where perhaps they could help support this system and take advantage of it as well. The federal government loves these projects. It's a regional asset. It's promoting sustainability, particularly in today's climate. So I think this is a very strong project and one I'm very excited about, for the city if we're able to actually bring this to fruition. Where we're at with this project right now, we will be completing the fixed facility analysis. We have to do an environmental justice review. We have to do a NEPA analysis, National Environmental Protection Agency requirement, because we're going to be bringing federal dollars into this project. So we have to go step by step. This is the first step. A lot of work goes into these type of projects. Second would be design, and then third, finally, we would move to construction. So that is the long-range plan. That facility, would support all of those other services that I started this presentation with, all the fixed route services we talked about, the trailhead shuttles expanded beyond what I've shown you, microtransit, ADA paratransit, regional services extending to the VOC, potentially connecting with the Yavapai Apache Nation at some point. They've expressed some interest in having some connections with our future system. But you need to have this infrastructure in place in order to grow a system that's being of the size of the one we're contemplating. Last thing I had is the mobility hub. Mobility hub would be sited on that current piece of land there. I'm not sure if this has a pointer, Candace, but it's where the red bus is there. That's okay. I'll walk them through it. So in addition to that site, to the left of there, the city owns quite a bit of property back there. This has been contemplated as the future site of the mobility hub. Mobility hubs, what are those? People have heard of transit hubs. The last 20 years I've been in the business, we always talked about transit hubs. Well, things have changed a lot, particularly in the last 2 years, but even leading up to that, where instead of just transit hub, mobility hubs support multi-modes of transportation, I'm sorry. So it would support your usual transit, your long-range transit, say going to the VOC, West Town or to the Western Gateway, that type of thing. So you can transfer from one bus to the other. But also mobility hubs, they support microtransit, they support TNCs, those are your Ubers, your Lyfts. They support rideables, e-bikes, e-scooters. But above all, the mobility hub itself needs to be accessible, through walking and through, shared use paths and all of that kind of thing. This is going to take a lot of design work. But with the way Sedona's set up, and you all know better than I've been here a year, I've been coming here 25 years, but I've only been a resident for just over a year. It's perfectly set up for this type of a facility because you have your first and last mile destinations, right? Uptown to Lakapaki, Hillside. Those are all could be easily accessible either through walking or e-bikes, e-scooters. The term of art is micromobility, walking, riding, jogging, whatever. That's all your first mile, last mile destinations. But when the transit comes into the mobility hub, now you're supporting your longer distance trips, going out to West Sedona, the VOC, Oak Creek Canyon potentially in the future, Cottonwood, through the Verde Shuttle, which already is in existence, and other. So the idea is that this one facility could support all of these different modes. Same thing, we're concurrently doing the same evaluation with respect to the fixed facility, environmental justice, and NEPA. We're doing that in this fiscal year for this facility as well. So we can get that initial environmental stuff out of the way, then we can start moving into design and eventually construction for both of these facilities. Time-wise, I could say 4 years off, maybe less. It's really going to depend on funding and how much funding we can bring in from the federal government, because we're going to need their help. But they like these projects. So one of my jobs, in addition to deploying trailhead shuttles and microtransit and everything else we got going on, is to bring in significant federal subsidy to help this city build its transit system. So I'm not sure where I'm at with time, but I did want to leave some time for questions, and I'm all yours.
We ask if you could please step up to the microphone so that everyone can hear your question. And so as we have someone there, someone can be teed up for time purposes, that'd be terrific. Thank you.
For the trailhead shuttles, how many actual vehicles for each of those loops? And will there be any type of reservation system, or you just kind of stand in line and the first 20 get on and then you wait for the next? And
Sure. So with the Cathedral Rock, Little Horse Route, we'll have 2 shuttles on that system as scheduled, providing 15-minute headway. But of course, transit is also subject to traffic because we don't have wormholes that we can go around. So that's pretty much for that one. Soldiers Pass would have 1 bus, and then there would be 2 buses right now for the Dry Creek and eventually Mescal trips. And as far as reservations, because we accept federal funds already, anything that we do with respect to public transit has to be open to the general public. So reservations would not be even remotely allowed under the federal rules. So, yes, sir.
I have a couple of quick questions. One is, how many employees do you expect you'll need in order to drive these buses?
9.
9. Could you tell me what the salary, the hourly pay might be for these drivers?
I'm working from memory. A couple of things. These will not be city employees. This will be contracted through a firm called MV Transportation, Inc. They provide municipal transportation services throughout the country. So the number I put out there is going to be give or take, but I think they're starting them at just under $19 an hour.
And as a follow-up to that, would the Chamber and other organizations interested in affordability, workforce housing, et cetera, at $19 an hour, could these new employees that we're bringing in to drive these shuttles afford to live in Sedona? I know that's not a question you can answer. It's one I'd like
You're
to put on
correct.
the
I
table.
can't answer it.
Yeah, no. Well, you really could by number of hours worked times 19 minus deductions for Social Security, et cetera, and you could get to a number.
So were there any other transit questions?
Yes. What you said 9 employees, yes?
Correct.
Okay.
That's just to start with.
Sure,
You know,
and I know we
then
have
the microtransit, when that kicks in, there'll be additional.
we have supply chain issues, and we also have this issue with people that don't want to work. So my only question is for the general audience is, we have 9 on the books. If 4 don't come in to work, then what?
Yeah, there'll be service disruptions for sure. Any other questions I can help you with?
How have you built out the cost estimates for this, both implementation, acquisition, construction, and then what are the ongoing costs, if you can speak to that?
For which?
For the facilities involved, for the maintenance and operations facility, as well as this park that you're talking about.
The maintenance and operations facility is based on similar projects that we've looked at throughout the nation, and we've done the best we can to make adjustments locally, for Arizona costs. But it's that's a really great question, because right now it's pretty difficult in post-COVID to really project those costs. We have other bids coming in for other projects that have been almost double than pre-COVID. So those numbers are still, in the wind.
I would imagine, though, you've got a concept. So where are we in terms of what are you imagining the cost could be?
That facility pre-COVID, almost the exact same footprint, was built for $16.5 million in California, pre-COVID. And that was on a fixed bid pre-COVID. So I can speculate with the rest of them where that may wind up for the city. But one thing to keep in mind is that if we're successful in bringing in federal dollars, they will provide 80 cents on the dollar.
That was my next question.
Right. So up to 80 cents on the dollar for building this type of infrastructure.
I have a quick question about the trailhead lots. How do we make sure that the lots don't fill up by, say, 8, 9 in the morning, and then the shuttle's just driving in circles waiting for those people to finish their 8-hour hike, come back, and make another parking space available for the next person? How do we make sure the lot, the 65-car lot, doesn't just fill up at 8 a.m. and then that's done for the day?
Yeah, we don't. That's what we have. This is a lot of these questions come up, and I wish I had answers for all of them. But I can tell you, until we become operational, when we become operational, we're going to have more questions that we haven't even thought of.
Exactly.
And then we're going to have better data that can help us, make better decisions, more informed decisions, and hopefully, modify the system as we go. So we're in some regards, we're kind of building this aircraft as we're flying it.
That's exactly what I was starting to think, is that you won't know how to manage these problems until...
We know what they are.
Exactly. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll take, this gentleman, I think, one more question. We will take open questions at the end. However, we do need to make time for our other speakers. And Robert will be available, too, for anyone after that needs to speak.
Why are the shuttles not going to the Red Rock Ranger District headquarters and then to trailheads like Yavapai, Vista, Courthouse, and Bell Rock?
Yeah, so everything right now that I've presented is within the city limits, and this entire program is being funded by the city. So when we start looking at service in unincorporated areas, it's a broader discussion that we're going to have to engage Yavapai County with to help with that funding. So to answer your question right now, it's really there's only so much funding. The city's going to fund projects within the city, and the trailheads that I listed earlier are considered to be the most heavily impacted in the city limits. So, but not to say at some point in the future, when we work out the funding with the county, et cetera, that you could look forward to seeing those expansions.
Thank you, Robert.
That it? Thank you.
So I do want to mention, we are working with the city as a public information officer capacity on keeping both our residents and visitors informed about the continually evolving shuttle program. So we do have an email address, Sedona Transit Info at sedonachamber.com, where you can email questions. We do have a frequently asked question page that we have already started from public questions to us that we have responses to, and so that will be an automatic response to you. So if you have a question that someone's asked, you may already get an answer. And then we're also personally monitoring that. There will be a website forthcoming very shortly as well, and we'll announce that and make sure everyone is aware of it. Before I introduce Ed Rose, I want to just share he is also a member of the Sedona Chamber Board, and that our nominations are currently open, and we'll be seeking additional board members for fiscal year 23 beginning July 1st. So if you are interested, please go to sedonachamber.com. We have a board of directors landing page, and it has all that information there for you. So with that, I would love to introduce Ed Rose, our general manager up at the Sedona Airport, to talk to you about what's going on up there. Come on, Ed.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. Thanks to the Sedona Performing Arts Center for hosting us today. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce for the invitation to speak about one of my favorite subjects, the Sedona Airport. One of my favorite pictures. The Sedona Airport is roughly 220 acres that was gifted to Yavapai County February 6, 1957, so our 65th birthday was just a few days ago. We've been around a while. It started with a group of interested local aviators that enlisted support from the Boy Scouts and from what was then the Christian Indian School, besides a number of Sedonans that cleared 3,700 feet of runway while the airport road was being bulldozed up to meet the mesa. The Sedona Airport is owned by Yavapai County, as I said. Yavapai County leases the airport to the Sedona Oak Creek Airport Authority, of which I am the general manager. Let's see. That's a new slide. It's still pretty. Thank you. Okay. We provide access to economic decision makers to the Sedona community. Who visits the Sedona community by air? We have doctors, heart doctors that come in quite frequently. We have developers. We have every major chain that you see up and down 179 and 89A that pay attention to the airport. Investors. And then again, folks that own second and third homes, etc. When these folks come into town, they frankly leak a lot of money. And that's the airport's job, is to facilitate economic development amongst a number of other things. The Sedona Airport hosts about 32,000 operations a year. That's landing or a takeoff. It's quite busy for a little facility with just 5,183 linear feet of runway. We have no plans to lengthen the runway, none. Our job is to enhance safety and promote efficiencies. We host our military, of course, and a number of you in this room can hear that thwop-thwop of some of these military helicopters that come through the area. This is the Army. We've got the Marines. We've got the Coast Guard. We're not sure if they were lost at this point. Coasties in the desert. We've got the Army. This particular group came from the West Coast, the manufacturing facility, and we're flying them back to the East Coast. Of course, they heard about Sedona and our beautiful red rocks, and they stop in to experience a little bit of our hospitality. This slide is from a search and rescue helicopter. These came up last February, as a matter of fact, and picked 3 people off of, I believe it was Thunder Mountain. All weather conditions, all accessibility. If you note, I plowed a big circle for them right there while they were waiting. I think we can go back one, I think. Yes, okay, now. We have a number of partners. Thank you. We work with local agencies, the Sedona Fire Department, and driver training. We work with them for patient transport in or out. We work with Forest Service contractors in protecting the Sedona area from wildfires. You can see the basket here, that holds about 3,500 gallons of water. A couple of folks could take a swim in that one. This one, Sky Crane, holds a little bit more water, about 4,000 gallons of water. You can see its pickup tube that's hanging off of the bottom here. So they just hover over a body of water, pick it up, and fly onto the fire. These are some more Chinook helicopters and more Sky Cranes. Last year we had 9 helicopter units with 63 staff for about 2 months. We also encourage aviation groups to host their convention or their meeting in Sedona. This particular group is a Cessna 195 group. These are antique aircraft. 43 of them came into Sedona last September. And of course, they were here for a week. They pick up hotel rooms, rental cars, meals, etc., and they fly around the area. We support helicopter tour operators through both the Fly Friendly agreement and physically on the field. We support lodging through the Sky Ranch Lodge. We have the Mesa Grill restaurant. We're looking to host venue on the Mesa, a new entrant into our market. It's an event center. We host Airport Day once a year. Usually, see, this year it'll be October 1st. And the theme is going to be Wings and Wheels. So if you like cars, fast cars, if you like airplanes, it's going to be your kind of a day. We also support APS contractors through their power line inspections. These are required inspections at interval. You might see some helicopters flying quite low through Oak Creek Canyon. I've got a couple of calls about them. This is what they're doing. They're making sure the integrity of their lines is what it needs to be. We support life flights, moving injured or mobilely challenged folks to and from aircraft in and around the Sedona area. This is how some of those less mobile folks can visit and see some of those Red Rock wonders that surround us. Let's see, I went through most of that. We can include law enforcement training. We work with Chief Husted for some driver training. We also work with some other agencies in SWAT training up on the facility. We're helping Robert out with some of the driver training for some of the new transit drivers. We have airframe and power plant repair on the facility now. That was not available before my arrival. And of course, we have recreational flying. ADOT recently completed an economic impact study that showed the Sedona Airport contributed over $32.5 million to the local economy. That was as of 2019. Since then, we've been growing at a 20% rate annually, and that brings us to about a $46.8 million impact to the local economy in 2021. Our current 5-year plan includes $23.5 million of improvements. These are safety improvements. We do a little bit better than Robert. We get 90 cents on the dollar. And we take not one penny of taxpayer money. We are totally self-funded. Our activities provide us the resources to make improvements to the facility. Like I said, the current traffic count for Sedona is about 32,000 operations a year. That's a landing or a takeoff. We're involved heavily with noise abatement promotion on our website and promoting the Fly Friendly agreement with our local helitour operators, the City of Sedona, and the Chamber of Commerce. Flight tracking, monitoring, and reporting is something that yours truly does on behalf of the agreement. This is not a bowl of spaghetti. This is a typical day's traffic for the Sedona Airport. Now, out of that bowl of spaghetti, you can see how there's a lot of transient traffic. Those are usually big airliners flying up through the areas. Out of this bowl of spaghetti, I can pick any line that will tell me who the operator is and what their flight path is, what their altitude is, what their tail number is, what their airspeed is, and their rate of ascent or descent. And from that, I can answer a complaint with hard data instead of with supposition. I thought the plane was too low. I thought the helicopter was too low. Well, no, actually, it's perfectly legitimate, and I've got the data that proves that. If we have an operator that shuns compliance regularly, I will call them out, talk to them about reiteration of the fly-friendly agreement and what their responsibilities are in signing on to it. And if I get a whiff of negligence, I will call the Flight Standards District Office in Scottsdale and have them follow up with the operator. So that's how I can track and help reinforce the fly-friendly agreement. I've been asked to dispel rumors. I've been asked to say that there's no UFO base beneath the mesa. That's a quick little shot of the airport. My departure is imminent. I'd love to take questions.
If I were to purchase a G5 and wanted to land in Sedona, what is my landing fee?
I'm sorry, what kind of aircraft do you fly?
G5,
A G5? It's usually $250.
$250.
Yeah, or you pick up 250 gallons of fuel.
And how much is a gallon of fuel today?
$6.26
Wow.
for jet fuel.
Wow. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I did that good?
I'm Gwen Walden, and I live over in CR Ranch, which we butt right next to Cathedral Rock. So my question is, in the last year, there's been a huge increase in helicopter traffic. Actually, I sent you some information, you got back to me on helicopters that were flying over the neighborhood. But my question is, how many tour helicopters are there? Are there specific routes? Because they seem like they're all going behind, Cathedral. And it seems like there was a change last year where instead of just going left to right, they're now coming back the same way. So I can have, helicopters every 10 minutes.
You're getting double duty.
Yeah.
Well, we're in the middle of revisiting the fly-friendly agreement presently, and the helicopter operators do have a seat at the table. And the community has expressed its displeasure about helicopter impacts over in that area. So we're looking to see what we can do legally to encourage these helicopter operators to fly at a higher altitude and thus produce less noise, or choose a different route.
Well, are there specific routes they can take, or are they all coming behind Cathedral?
Once they lift off the ground, they're in FAA territory.
So
There's
you
nothing
have
I can do. I have no enforcement mechanism whatsoever. I can only ask them to comply.
So there's no specific rules now of where they can fly or how high they can fly?
No,
Other than
these-
they can't fly over homes. Is that part of the fly?
Even that, with a helicopter, they're legally able to do that. The FAA rules, not mine. Don't kill the messenger. Do we like them flying low? No, and we talk to them regularly. We are connected with other partners that have provided me video of helicopters flying 100 feet off the deck over in the Broken Arrow area, for instance. And while I got total denial out of the operator, the bowl of spaghetti that I showed you a few minutes ago identified them clearly.
So we've
Look, it's your helicopter.
Right.
What are you doing flying 100 feet off the deck? This is negligence. This is poor behavior.
So
And I
we've
have to
added-
defend you.
We've added another tour company. How many helicopters are there in the tour companies?
Let's see. 6, 2 each.
6 to each.
6, 2 each.
So we got 18 of them?
2 each. 6 total.
6 total.
2 each.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone? I see a hand up.
I'm wondering why we don't have any kind of shuttle service from Sedona to the Phoenix airport.
I wonder that myself. I can tell you that there are parties interested that see this as an opportunity, and they're doing their homework. What that will mean to the airport is the introduction of TSA, parking issues, and more noise. Yeah, there are other services available. Groom is one. Zeus is another one. Zeus Transportation. So what we've got up here is a wonderful little facility. It's a gem right smack in the middle of Sedona. No, we didn't put the airport there after the city was built. The airport was there. The city grew around it, and we're trying to be the best possible neighbors we can be while contributing to the community where we can.
Just to speak to the fly-friendly agreement, so that agreement has been in operation for about a little over a year and a half. We are sitting back down. We do have a new helicopter tour operator, Apex Tours, that's joining Guidance and Sedona Air Tours. We also include Yavapai County, the city of Sedona, and Keep Sedona Beautiful, who is a nonprofit that works here on behalf of residents to ensure our quality of life is maintained. And so we have had multiple meetings reconvening that group. That original agreement was signed to be kind of in perpetuity, but we have decided we will renew that every year. We have a new partner to the table speaking with us from the National Park Service, representing Tuzigoot and Montezuma as National Historic Monuments, and being respectful of flying over those places as well. But just to reiterate what Ed said, these agreements are voluntary. He has no ability to levy any punishment or punitive damages on these tour operators. So the fact that they come sit at the table, agree to these fly avoidance zones is what we're calling them, because there is a misnomer in the past of a no-fly zone. That language doesn't exist. There is no such thing as a no-fly zone unless it comes from the FAA, and what we do with the fly-friendly agreement cannot constitute that. So these are fly avoidance zones where we have identified neighborhoods with high concentrations of residents to please try to avoid. We are also limiting their hours of operation, not leaving too early in the morning, trying to finish up at the end of the evening. But what Ed always shares with us as well, there are flights coming in and out from around the state and out of state, from Las Vegas, for example. Those individuals and companies are not a part of this agreement. So just because you hear some type of machine overhead, it may not be one of these three tour operators. When we had the emergency forest closure this past summer, and we had all kinds of emergency firefighters in, as Ed showed those pictures, flight paths were diverted. We had a lot more traffic over our city in areas where we normally didn't. So people were really upset, which we understand, but at the same time, we were fighting a forest fire. And so we do need to be cognizant of other things that are going around. It is an ecosystem, and we are all interconnected. And so this is something that we work toward every day. We will be going out to the chapel area. Ed has volunteered to go meet with the neighborhood, as have the three helicopter tour operators, to investigate the particular flight path there that has been recently more problematic with some divergence of paths. And so we'll be setting up that meeting here in the near future. And as you can see, Ed is very available. Al, your Mr. Airport website, SedonaAirport.com or SedonaAirport.org. You can go to the website there. You can also go to visitsedona.com and type in the fly-friendly agreement. The process is working. There's a very short form where you go in, and those 4 pieces of information that Ed referenced, what's the date, what's the time, where were you located, and he can track that little blue line in that bowl of spaghetti. And he will then look up every one that he gets and go to that helicopter tour operator if a transgression has occurred and speak to them about it. So they are training their pilots on this agreement when they're onboarded. So know that we are doing our part to all be good neighbors, and the process is working, and we're doing as well as we can. Yes, ma'am. On visitsedona.com. and type in fly friendly agreement, and there's a whole landing page that talks all about how this was formed with Keep Sedona Beautiful and our city and county partners in the airport, as well as the private industry folks. So, but with that, I want to move on because Ranger Tinderholt, are you going to go first, Alex? Sorry, apologies. Amy has some of her team members that are going to help present today. A lot to catch up on our outdoor recreation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alex to introduce himself, and then Chris and Amy will speak as well from the U.S. Forest Service Red Rock Ranger District.
Good morning. Thank you for inviting us. My name is Alex Schluter. I'm our Deputy District Ranger here on the Red Rock Ranger District. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Fossil Creek and the Backbone Fire down in that area. And then my colleagues here, Amy and Chris, they will talk about camping, our management in West Sedona, as well as some updates on OHV, off-highway vehicle management. So let's get to it. Fossil Creek. Well, I'll start before Fossil Creek. Backbone Fire overall last year burned over 40,000 acres. This was a very large fire located southeast of Camp Verde. It burned some areas very hot. You know, like any fire, it's a patchwork. Some got torched and some others were unaffected. The waterfall, for example. Oh, thanks. The waterfall, for example. Oh yeah, that's a difference. Did not get burned real heavily. And I'll share some pictures of that as well. So here is Homestead Recreation Site. If any of you have ever been there, it's really popular swimming area. You can see it got burned pretty darn badly, not only the vegetation, but some of our infrastructure, fencing, signage, gates, things like that. Before the fire is even over, we have a team come in, and they're called our BEAR team, our Burned Area Emergency Response. And what they do is they start to assess what the hazards are after the fire, and then try to come up with a plan to implement things to prevent further damage to the landscape and to public safety. And so they develop these maps by taking soil samples, monitoring the area, and soil burn severity kind of gives you a sense of where it burned the hottest and the effects were the worst. And then they create models, modeling that danger, again, public safety. This is the debris flow hazard. So debris flows are when the water comes down and carries all of that debris that was on the landscape with it. Very dangerous result. And so just some pictures after the fire, this happened. The sedimentation, if you've been to this area, Sally Mae, I'm fairly new here, but I've been told you couldn't see the bottom. Obviously, you can see here that the sediment's filled it up. It's only a foot or two deep. And then you look here, some more sedimentation. That picture on the right shows what used to be a ditch. It's full of sediment. And so if we don't get in there and clean that out, we're worried that things like this happen, where the road, the water can't go through the culvert and the road starts to wash out. But the most important thing, on top of the physical damage, is the public safety aspect. So during the fire, we had a very large closure area you can see here on the left. After the fire, of course, fire isn't the concern anymore. We've got three main concerns. Those are dead trees, flash floods, and then debris dams, where that debris comes down and forms a natural dam, which is much less structurally sufficient compared to like a beaver dam, something like that. We don't know when that could break, so it's very dangerous, could release a flood of water and debris, potentially harming anybody in the waterway. So you can see that our closure order changed from that large area to a much more specific area around these waterways. So what's going to happen in the future, we expect that closure area not to change for at least a couple months, probably through the end of May. But we're going to be out there monitoring and looking at those hazards. So for the hazard trees, of course, we can mitigate those in recreation sites. We cut the trees that have been affected. But for other things like flash flooding, what they're looking at with that soil is the hydrophobicity. So just to give you a metaphor, when the soil becomes really, really burned, it becomes hydrophobic and repels water. So if you spill a glass of water at home and it's on carpet, it doesn't go very far. But say a fire comes in and burns through all your carpet, and all you got left is a concrete slab. That's what we've got in some places, where you spill that glass of water and it rushes everywhere. And so when that's in a canyon, of course, that flash flooding risk is intense. And then the debris dams that we're going to be looking at, we're going to be acquiring a drone to go fly these different canyons and see if we can spot debris dams and take care of those and remove them if possible. We're not sure if it's going to be possible, but those are kind of some of the measures we can take to improve public safety. And until we're comfortable Balancing, obviously nobody in the Forest Service wants to keep these areas closed, but we're trying to balance that public access versus that public safety. And then the last thing I wanted to point out in this picture, this looks like that carpet we're looking for, but to add a little nuance to that metaphor, we're not looking for just the grass. The grass itself isn't going to stop it. We're looking for that woody vegetation. That's what's going to be really, really effective. It's going to be that shag carpet, I guess, maybe to get a little too deep in the metaphor. But that's what our hydrologists are looking for, that soil burn severity and then that woody vegetation coming back. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Chris, and he's going to give you a little bit of an update on West Sedona.
Good morning. My name is Chris Johansson. I'm the Red Rock District Recreation Program Manager, and I'd like to give you an update on our West Sedona Designated Dispersed Camping Project. We're doing an emergency area closure. As everybody's probably seen, driving down 89A, high use has expanded the camping footprint in areas that have never been seen before, along with the use. Earlier, you heard that recreation is at an all-time high on public lands, and we're feeling that in the greater Sedona area greatly. As a result, we are implementing an emergency closure that'll close 31,000 acres to camping and campfires, which is predominantly along the 525 corridor. There's 2 sites on 89B and there's 1 on 89A as well. So there's 8 total campsites. We're going to implement this spring, hopefully in March, April timeframe. And the temporary action, what our goal is to protect wildlife, protect cultural resources, enhance law enforcement, protect rangeland, reduce fire danger, and provide better camping opportunities. So out of that 31,000 acres that we're closing to camping and campfires, there'll be 8 designated camping spots for public to use. And there will be no reservation system. It'll be first come, first serve. It'll provide approximately 150 to 200 campsites. We're still working that out. There may be a few more, maybe a few less. The 14-day stay limit is still in effect, as with most public lands in the United States. And the United States Forest Service and law enforcement will patrol and monitor. And what that means, we're working with our local agencies, Yavapai County Sheriff's Office, our law enforcement with the Forest Service to ensure that these areas are patrolled and protected. And over the next couple years, we will be monitoring this and potentially expanding or contracting some of these camping areas depending on use. So here's the closure area. It's kind of hard to read the map, but essentially the 31,000 acres that will be closed in this project, combined with the current campfire ban in the city of Sedona, together there'll be 55,000 acres. And the Red Rock District itself is 550,000 acres. So there's still plenty of camping opportunities. There's going to be plenty of dispersed camping opportunities still available to the public. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Amy Tinderholt.
Morning. My name's Amy Tinderholt. I'm the district ranger for the Red Rock Ranger District. Brought 3 of us here today because we're covering a lot of information and we want to be available to you after the presentation to answer any questions. So if you've got anything and there's not enough time, don't worry, we're going to be around after the presentation to talk a little bit more. So I want to give you all some updates on where we're at with OHV management. Some accomplishments. We have a goal of increasing our volunteer engagement around OHVs. If you've lived or worked here for a while, you know that volunteers is a big way of how we get things done on the National Forest. Now we're increasing engagement in our OHV program as well. A lot of the current engagement is currently coming from our businesses. So we're very, very thankful of the Red Rock OHV conservation crew that was formed under the chamber, or in cooperation with the chamber. They've got 2 great work days already accomplished on Diamondback Gulch. They've had a 2-day education program so far out on the ground where they're talking with folks on the trails. They'll be out again on President's Day, making contact with people on the ground, demonstrating to our folks who are visiting why it's important that they have good ethics when they're out and about and how to be safe on the trails. We're also working on resource protection. So there's already been a couple of work days out with volunteers looking at areas. We're really focusing either on areas where we've got resource damage or where we've got safety. And so we're addressing areas where there's trail widening, where we've got go-arounds, where it's not a passing area, but people are widening out the trail, and any place where we've got folks going off-road, trying to keep folks on the trail. We've got a program happening this week where, again, our Red Rock OHV conservation crew will be out with the Forest Service installing this fence that's showing here, where we've got an area that's quite wide on the Diamondback Gulch Trail, where we're getting folks running around doing donuts and just not acting quite appropriately. And hopefully this fencing project will help keep them on the trail. They'll go up a little further and they'll see how exciting and beautiful that trail is, and that they don't need to do donuts in order to have a great time. We're also going to be working on installing some speed advisory signs throughout the 152C and the 525 area. Again, want to highlight the great work that's been done with the Sedona Chamber and the Red Rock OHV conservation crew. They've been working with Tread Lightly. They've produced a number of videos that are available on YouTube that are really focused on Sedona ethics. How do you get to the trail? How do you act on the trail? Why it's important. It's really important in any user group that we've got kind of people within a user group trying to educate each other. When you really feel like it's somebody with some street cred about, being out there in an ATV or in a Jeep who's telling you here's why it's important, it comes across a lot better to those folks who are visiting us. The Red Rock OHV conservation crew has also started a 1% fund. So 1% of their revenue is going towards rider education, resource protection, and maintenance. So the Forest Service has been working to establish an agreement with Tread Lightly so that we can start to apply for those funds and can start to see those funds going onto the ground. That is what's going to be funding the fencing project that I highlighted earlier. Some of the important ongoing actions that we're trying to focus on for the next 3 years. So law enforcement is important. And we're working to coordinate very heavily with our law enforcement agencies. So for us, that's our law enforcement. We have 2 law enforcement agents who cover the entire Red Rock District. It's Yavapai County Sheriff's Office and Arizona Game and Fish. Arizona Game and Fish will be having, they do flights on some of their special emphasis days, and they'll be doing that on February 19th. And so we coordinate with them on those days to try to beef up education and presence so that the public sees us out on the ground. We're working with those 1% funds that I highlighted earlier to hire somebody who's going to be specifically dedicated to the OHV program. They'll be starting to figure out what our priorities are, starting to apply for state OHV grants. It'll really give us the capacity to start making a bigger difference on the ground. And so we'll be working to do that over the next few months. And then we're also going to work with Tread Lightly to try to maybe figure out some other unique ways to provide some presence on the ground. That makes a big difference, whether it's our volunteers or our trail crew. When you see them out and about, you act differently when you actually see people out on the ground who are wearing a Forest Service uniform or wearing a partner uniform or our county sheriff's department folks. So we're really going to try to increase our presence. As I mentioned, we have our first large project scheduled this week with the fencing project. And we'll be, especially as we start to increase our capacity, we'll be working to really focus on keeping folks on legal routes and reducing resource damage. So that's like the ongoing day-to-day stuff that we want to do to try to improve OHV management. Some of the bigger items. These are the things that are going to take us, a year or multiple years as we're working on. One of them is visitor use management in the Broken Arrow area. That's an area that's always been managed for a higher level of use, but it's certainly a concern for residents. It's a concern for our folks who have been using the trails for quite a long time. The use is changing. We're seeing increasing use, whether we're talking about hiking or we're talking about OHVs. And so we'll be starting a process in looking at that area, assessing use, assessing impacts, and trying to decide what's the right tact for us to take in the future. The other proposal that we have is we'd like to work with multiple stakeholders. This includes the City of Sedona, Arizona Game and Fish, Yavapai County Sheriff's Office, Yavapai County, to think about OHV management as a whole. This is, when we're talking about OHV management, there's lots of different partners who have responsibility for different parts and pieces of it. You know, the state is the licensing agency. We do the land management. The Arizona Fish and Game has a big piece of enforcement. So as we're trying to figure out what management of OHVs looks like in the area or across the Verde Valley in the future, it's more than just the Forest Service. It's all of us working with the public and the residents to try to figure out what we're aiming for, what's our goal, and then what are the strategies that help us to get toward that goal. So you'll be hearing a lot more of that over the next few months to a year. We'll be talking with the City Council in March a little bit more about that effort. And I think that's really the important piece for our long-term management. So like I mentioned, we're going to be here. We presented a lot today, and there's a lot of other things that we didn't present. So we'll be around to address all your questions after today. Candace, I don't know if you wanted to take a couple of questions.
Is there a question or two for Ranger Tinderholt or Ricky? Brian? After Brian's finished, you can come up here.
Thank you for being here this morning. The Sedona area gets 3.4 million visitors a year. When you compare that with the National Park Service, that puts us in the top 10, getting close to the top 5. When you look at a park like Arches, which gets over a third fewer visitors, they're putting in a timed entry system. Zion's putting in a permit-based system for accessing Angel's Landing. What is your position on taking that level of measure to protect the environment here?
So it's another one of those long-term questions on where we want to be in the long term. We've had some great conversations even over the last couple of weeks here with the city about the option of looking at what does transit look like in the future. Is there potentially a future of a larger transit system that may look something like what Zion operates? I think all of those things are completely possible. I think with a growing Phoenix metro area, I don't see demand for visiting our beautiful Red Rock Ranger District decreasing in the future. And so it's going to mean all of us coming together and figuring out what visitation management looks like. I don't have an answer. I wish when I came to this district, I came with a plan that said, here's all of your solutions for visitor use management. But it's going to be all of us working on that together. It's going to be things that, solutions in the future that mean that we all have to figure out different ways that we ourselves who are lucky enough to live here visit this area differently. But my position is I see that visitation will look different as we look 5 and 10 years down the future. I think it has to look different if we want to maintain what we all love here.
Ma'am, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just curious, how often does your team patrol the campground areas where we see all these campers for days at a time or something along those lines?
Excellent. So I think you're referring mainly to what we call our dispersed areas, where we've got the dispersed camping. Folks are visiting via roads. So we operate in a partnership. So it's Forest Service. We have cooperative agreements with Yavapai County Sheriff's Department. We also work very closely with Arizona Game and Fish. Forest Service, we have, as I mentioned, 2 law enforcement officers that cover those 550,000 acres. We also have a staff of between our recreation officers who at any time we're staffed up for about 4 people who patrol the district as a whole, given on any given season. So we are spread pretty thin. But we're working on developing some new techniques. So we recently started using a new app, which is an amazing improvement. Forever in my career, the way we communicated was we came in from the field and we wrote up on a big whiteboard or we left sticky notes. here's what I saw, scary person in this location, don't visit. This person's been here, 14 days, we need law enforcement response. Now we've started using this application that's allowing our folks in the field to put in that information. They can all see that information. Our staff can pick up that app and go, this is a site that I'm not supposed to have contact because maybe this person is somebody who law enforcement only can contact. We can monitor how long folks have been there for our 14-day stay policy. So even though we continue to be short-staffed and spread thin, we're trying to work smarter. And we've really made some good efforts over the last couple of years.
Thank you, Ryan. Brian, to your question, I do want to add something. So on the U.S. Travel Association board, I sit on a National Parks and Public Lands Working Group committee. And so you started the question with all these other national parks. It is really important for the public to understand we are not a national park. Ranger Tinderholt, to use a word that she uses often, we have neighborhoods because we were a community before we could become a national park, before the National Park Service existed. And therefore, our management through the Department of the Interior is very different than that through the Department of Agriculture versus the Department of Interior, which manages our national parks, is very different. We have a lot of wherewithal, both financial and human resources that we are putting to these OHV and other outdoor recreation impacts. But a lot of times what we come up against is the bureaucracy of our federal government. So in addition to the 1% that the Rock Group has been collecting since September and is estimated to be about $400,000 for the year to trail enhancements, the permitted outfitters and guides who are through the Forest Service currently give 3% of their revenues for trail enhancements and improvements. So the monies to be able to do a lot of things to help restore or ensure no future damage occurs is there, as well as the manpower. There is a dichotomy in our visitor. So we as the voice of business at the Chamber are working with our private partners, again, to try to be good members of this community. Many of these owners live in Sedona and are residents as well. However, as the fastest growing metropolitan in the nation is 2 hours drive, we're a backyard for many ATV, OHV users who come up here and are really being disrespectful. I saw it too in the Bash's parking lot this past weekend, who I did take some photos, but was actually rather afraid to go up and approach, or otherwise, many of you know me, I'm shy. I don't do that kind of thing. But that I really, really wanted to go up and have a conversation, but I was actually a bit afraid, so I did not. So there is a lot of work to do with Phoenix as well. We're talking with a broadcast group, a radio broadcast group, to come up and do a remote from here of a DJ that actually is an ATV individual and has influence in that community, to come be out on the 525 at one of our spring break heavy weekends to talk about, if you're going to come recreate up here, this is what we expect of you. And if you don't, here's what you're going to get. We have increased enforcement and patrols, and we are watching, and there are people out there who are going to call you on that. So know that a lot of time and effort by so many stakeholders from the city, the county, the Forest Service, private industry, again, Keep Sedona Beautiful, our residents out on the 525, our grazing rights folks who live out there, Becky and Dustin, many people are very involved in this conversation. So with that, I want to move on. Camille Cox, the chair of the Big Park Regional Coordinating Council, is back to join us again to talk to us about the village and our greater destination and our greater community, about what is going on over there. So with that, I turn it over to Camille.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Okay, let's go back to the first one. I'm not a multitasker, so I asked Candace to give me a hand with this. First, I want to say thank you to the Chamber Board and to Candace for inviting us to the table to tell a little bit of our story today, and deeply to APS for making this possible. So what you're looking at here is the Big Park region. So in the center of it, you see the village of Oak Creek, but the Big Park region goes from kind of the courthouse Bell Rock trailhead all the way out on the west to the Red Rock Crossing, and then down to the Ranger Station on 179, and then as you go out Jack's Canyon Road and Lee Mountain Road out there into that canyon area. So that's the totality of the Big Park region that the Big Park Regional Coordinating Council works on behalf of. Okay. And that picture, by the way, is from our own village homeboy, Tan Grusing, who, as everybody knows, is just a magnificently talented photographer. So our background, real quickly, is that we're a 501c36 nonprofit founded in 1996. We're 26 years strong. We serve as the voice for the VOC, Village of Oak Creek, Big Park region. And just as a little sidebar, we have kind of an identity confusion issue in our area. Most of the people that live in the Big Park region don't know what Big Park means. So there's some confusion around that. And then everybody kind of knows the Village of Oak Creek, which gets abbreviated as the VOC. And some people inside of our own community get a little lost there. And then you add a capital A at the end of it, and you've got VOCA, V-O-C-A. Well, what's that? It's a thing. So you've got the Big Park region, which I just described, and then you've got the Village of Oak Creek, which is kind of down in the more built-out commercial area, and then you've got VOCA, which is the Village of Oak Creek Association, which is a property management association, an umbrella, and they represent about 2,600 homeowners in the Village of Oak Creek area. But it's not all of the Village of Oak Creek, and obviously it's not all of the Big Park region. So I just wanted to make that distinction because even in our own community, we get very confused about who we are. So the Big Park Regional Coordinating Council represents the entire community and all the voices within our community. Next. Our mission, just real quickly, I won't go over all the details here, but we strive to promote the best interests by studying problems and solutions. We represent the community on a advisory level to many different government agencies and anybody who actually might have an interest in doing something in our community. And then, very importantly, we serve as a forum for everybody to come together and discuss problems and to learn about what's going on or what might possibly be going on. So in a nutshell, we're advisory, we're a convener, I love that word, and we're a consensus seeker. So we have moved beyond trying to be a thumbs up, thumb down, yes, I like it, no, I don't, organization, to being an organization that brings people together to have discussions, to learn, and to get together with different stakeholders in any given issue and work out something that everybody can live with. Next slide. Our structure looks like this. We're basically a council of representatives, which is our board of directors. So we have 26 member organizations. 23 of them are homeowner and property owner associations, and that includes VOCA, which has about 2,600 homes. That's one of our council members. We have one business member, and we have two educational associations, which are actually both of the schools that are in our community. And then up at the top, we've got an executive board who is elected from the Council of Representatives. So that's how we do our business. Next slide. But really, this is the heart and soul here. This is how we get things done. And these are all volunteers. So we have on the left-hand side, you'll see we have committees. We have a planning and zoning committee. We formed an APS Powerline subcommittee. We have a dark sky committee, a community plan committee, and an emergency preparedness committee. And those numbers that are in the parentheses, that's how many volunteer residents we have serving on those committees. And then we just formed a strategic plan task force, which met for the first time yesterday. And that's really looking at leadership development to provide continuity and stability and sustainability for our organization going forward. And then on the right-hand side, these are liaisons. So we have a dedicated U.S. Forest Service liaison who stays in communication with our Forest Service. We have a seat on the Verde Valley Transportation Planning Organization. that meets in Cottonwood. Actually, it doesn't always meet in Cottonwood now that I think about it, but that goes all the way from Flagstaff all through the Verde Valley. We are now a proud member of the Sedona Chamber, and we're a partner. The Sedona Village Partnership was a fundraising organization in the village, and they too are a member of the Sedona Chamber now. Next slide. You can go ahead. A few of our accomplishments of the last year. We formed a committee of 17 members and about 30 support team members to put our community plan together. And we have collected a subscription list, opted-in subscribers of about 800 that take our surveys and are giving us feedback as we march along towards the conclusion of our community plan. We're probably about 75% of the way there. We had intended to be complete by November, but when the county sort of started looking at the community plan project a little differently, we put it on pause, and we're getting back on track with that. I'm expecting we'll be complete probably in June. Lots of local press on our plan, and we've had a website since the beginning, also a mobile app for people to stay connected with what we're doing. Next slide. This is kind of an interesting project. In January of 2020, the U.S. Forest Service issued a call for public comment on a proposed power line from McGuireville into the village of Oak. There's that VOC word, into the village of Oak Creek or into the Big Park area. And we sat down to study that and figure out what that meant. Basically, it's a use permit is needed to go through the Coconino National Forest area. So we got busy, we formed a committee, and reached out to APS, to the U.S. Forest Service, to our own community members, and in order to really gain a good understanding of what was at stake here. I can't say enough about how good the U.S. Forest Service has been to work with. Very responsive, helped us along to understand how the process worked, where we fit into it, how it was all going to unfold. They've just been absolutely terrific. So in order to really understand this, we did a lot of work. We did research, we retained 2 different consulting companies, lots of polls to the community, public forums, collaboration with other stewardship groups in the area. And like I said, that started in January of 2020. And just last month, January of 2022, we submitted about a 25-page researched comment letter to the U.S. Forest Service on our community's position. And that basically cited our opposition to an overhead line and our advocacy for a buried line. There already is a buried line, by the way, it's about 13.7 miles through the Forest Service, and there is now a natural gas line along that proposed route. So it's been done before. Our issues there and there are many, but primarily our issues with an underground line above ground line are wildfire risk. That is our economy. It's a national treasure, and we would hate to see that lost. There are also view corridor issues associated with that proposed line. And we feel that it also is in conflict with the local forest management plan. So we have submitted our letter. We're expecting, I think sometime in Q2 or Q3, that the Forest Service will come back with their final environmental assessment, and we'll see where we take it from there. Next slide. Horse Mesa Ranch. Now, if you go through the village and you get off on Jack's Canyon Road and you meander back there in the Lee Mountain area and you land about where the Hot Loop or the Rabbit Ears trailhead is, you're just about to Horse Mesa Ranch. I've got an arrow there where Jack's Canyon Road is. And it's been there for a long time. It's about 11 and a half acres of equestrian. They can house up to 70 horses there. It's been operated for close to 40 years as an equestrian facility. And unfortunately, the owner of the property died, and her estate didn't want to carry on that tradition. And so the property went on the market. And the way it works in Yavapai County is that a use permit is not transferable to a new owner. So we had a buyer who wanted to keep the horse ranch in perpetuity and applied for the use permit. And of course, that came to the Big Park Council and the community for comment. That's some pretty prime real estate right there. And there were some very interested developers in subdividing and putting housing into that area. It's unincorporated. Of course, all that housing could potentially be short-term rentals. We had a lot of concerns about that as a community. And so what the Big Park Council did is we, again, convened forums. It went to our Planning and Zoning Committee, lots of public meetings, lots of discussion, lots of press. And what really came out of that is the community felt very strongly about preserving it as a horse ranch, as an equestrian facility to serve 4-H'ers, FFA'ers, rehabilitation for veterans who they practice equine therapy out there, as well as just pleasure riding on the U.S. forest trails that are still available for riders in that area. So the community was behind it, and I'm happy to report that the County Planning and Zoning Commissioners and the Board of Supervisors approved it, and that is the last remaining boarding facility, equine boarding facility in the Sedona area. Next slide. This one's kind of interesting. You may recognize the location. The commercial's property just to the left here is the Collective on 179. What I've pointed to up there is a replacement APS utility pole. AT&T came to us. They actually had not even filed for a use permit yet, but they came to the Big Park Council and asked us to take a look at their proposal to take that pole that's right there and turn it into a new 5G wireless substation. So there would actually be more to it than just that pole with the antenna on the top. There's actually a bunch of equipment that would be on it also. It actually sits on private property right now. The property right behind it belongs to Las Piedras Property Owners Association. So again, we brought it to our P&Z committee. It was a hot topic among locals. You say 5G and you're going to get some excitement. So we walked through all of that. AT&T hired an engineering firm called Bechtel, and their Bechtel representative came, drafted up some really nice photographs and things for the community to see how that would probably look. We put our heads together and took some polls, and we asked them to please come back with some other solutions within the community. We gave them a couple of suggestions, and they kind of went away. I haven't heard from them since. So we're waiting. There's no further action on the table right now, but hopefully they will listen and come up with another solution that can serve their needs and the needs of the people in our community who want better cell phone connection, and also not put a scar on that beautiful gateway to the Sedona area. Next slide. A few of our key initiatives for 2022, completing the community plan, as I stated. We are launching an emergency preparedness online portal. I know that the city of Sedona is kind of looking at those kind of things also. We've already mapped out a website. It would be a resource for residents, businesses, and visitors, and we'll be doing a public awareness campaign in conjunction with that. Produce and promote the dark sky community information resources and put on at least one and maybe more dark sky events in the community. That all kind of went on pause with COVID, so we're hoping for the best on that. We've got a very strong committee right now, so it should be exciting to see what they come up with. The next thing, item 4, I want to just say a few words about. We have, Yavapai County put together a team that was accepted at the statewide Growing Water Smart workshop that's going on, and one of our community plan members and business owner in the village was selected to be part of that team. There's 2 county supervisors on the team, quite a bit of the number of members of the County Planning and Zoning Commission, and also county staff. So we're really, really pleased to have a member on that team, and they will be getting a lot of education on things that we can do in our region with respect to water. And then last point is just ongoing. Research, education, engage, and respond to projects that are impacting the quality of life and environmental resources. Just want to leave you with a closing thought about kind of what's going on. I just got to pause and say that volunteerism is really very alive and well. Just as Amy pointed out, so much great work being done by the Forest Service totally relies on volunteer work. We have engaged so many who've given so generously, not only of their time, but we have no money. So those consultants that got hired to help us understand and move the conversation to a higher level on the power line, those are paid for with private donations from our committee members and community members. And the last thing is that we really see ourselves, well, because we are, the gateway to the Sedona experience. So many people enter this area through the 117, and we are very committed to doing everything that we can to have that experience be the best it possibly can be, both for our residents and quality of life, and the visitors, which we all once were, who come through that gateway as well. Thank you. Any questions? No? All right. Thank you, Candace.
So with that, I'd love to introduce Dr. Tina Redd with the Verde Valley Instructional Dean to come join us to talk about the college. She also has 2 colleagues with her, Linda Shook and Heather Mulcair, who will each be speaking to their programs directly.
Thank you, Candace. Can everyone hear me? Good morning. I am Tina Redd. I am the Dean of the Verde Valley for Yavapai College. I have with me today 2 very important members of my team, Associate Deans Linda Shook and Heather Mulcair. Linda oversees the Sedona Center, the OLLI program, and lifelong learning. Heather oversees operations at the Verde Valley campus, and she's also in charge of the career and technical programs there. For over half of a century, Yavapai College has been focused on 3 things: transfer, workforce training, and lifelong learning. Excellence in transfer is still our central focus. We want students, in fact, most of our students come to us for transfer, and we want to provide excellence in general education and clear pathways to our partner colleges and universities. But fast forward to the present, add a global pandemic, and community colleges like Yavapai know that we need to be responsive, we need to be agile, nimble, and we need to work in partnership with our community. A perfect example of working with our community is our partnership with Spectrum Healthcare. They came to us, they let us know what they needed. We created programming to meet their needs. A year and a half later, we have 22 frontline staff who have graduated in our Compassionate Care series. We have another cohort of supervisors working through the Managed by Leading program. These are both 4 8-week classes that Spectrum pays the tuition on, and when their employees complete, they earn a $1 an hour raise and a $500 bonus. This fall, we'll launch a behavioral health technician certificate. That certificate is open to the general community, and this time we will be providing a pipeline to employment at Spectrum. None of this programming would be possible without our amazing faculty. Our faculty have a wealth of knowledge and practical expertise. They are a community treasure. What hasn't changed at Yavapai College is that we strive to be accessible, relevant, and affordable. Our open door policies are a promise to the community that no matter where you are in terms of your education or what your financial resources are, our doors are available. And so now I'd like to turn it over to Linda Shook so she can share some of the programming that we have that's going to make that promise a reality.
Thank you, Dean Red, and thank you, Candace, and the Chamber colleagues, and all of you here in the community that came today. It's a pleasure for me to speak to you about what I get to do for a living, which is have an opportunity to learn something new every day. And I can tell you in the last hour and a half in which we've been together, my list of just 1 or 2 items has probably grown to about 20. So I appreciate this opportunity to be with you. I'd like to invite each of you who haven't walked across the street, I'll be walking back in a few minutes, and visited the Sedona Center lately. I have probably the best view of any person who works at Yavapai College throughout our county. I have a daily view of Thunder Mountain, and I have we're located just off Cultural Park, so I see a lot of people coming back and forth and using our trail system. So please, if you have time, please swing by, although I have purview over all of our enrichment programs for the college in Prescott, the Verde Valley, and in Sedona. My base office is in beautiful Sedona. I'd like to take a moment to tell you about 3 items that will be occurring. One is a new program, one is an upcoming program, and then ongoing programming. So our new programming is our partnership with the Sedona International Film Festival. Our primary job is to provide educational opportunities, and what we do at the Sedona Center, we do have 4 credit with our culinary program, but we also have the privilege of having our anchor programming be not-for-credit enrichment learning. Patrick Swice approached us this fall and said, hey, how about we offer our workshops, educational workshops, at the Sedona Center in conjunction with SIF. The college was delighted, as were Dean Red and myself, to be able to do this. So beginning February 21st through the 25th, when there are 2 a day, in the past there have been 1 a day workshops, there are 2 a day workshops that will be held at the Sedona Center. And as a special bonus, our OLLI members will be able to participate via Zoom. We also are capitalizing on our beautiful kitchens at the Sedona Center, and we're offering not-for-credit learning. Believe it or not, throughout the pandemic, we offered either online or socially distanced culinary classes just for those of us who want to learn for the fun of it. Well, that'll be going on throughout our spring semester. In addition to those courses, we offer a variety of other projects with our culinary program, our community ed program. We do cooking classes, foreign language classes, art classes, just about any topic, memoir writing, we have that. And I did bring several catalogs with me, so I will be in the lobby as well to share those with you. But one thing that we're particularly happy about, if you haven't visited the Sedona Center and you haven't seen it, it is just a beautiful architectural gem. We have been given permission for our OLLI students to, every month, we have a different OLLI member who exhibits his or her artwork, and we've had a variety of art, not surprisingly, We started this in August, and every artist has had some type of theme related to the outdoors and nature. Our Artist of the Month, beginning in March, will be featuring artwork of gardens and doors and the environment as well. But this was our first artist who is an OLLI member, and that's the other artists that we've featured so far, you can see all used the nature theme too. So we are utilizing our beautiful facilities and now putting art up for people to come and visit and see. So I invite you to come over after this time or anytime between 8 and 5, Monday through Friday, and see our artwork. I also have OLLI catalogs with me, which is, as I said, our anchor enrichment program, the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute. There are 125 of those programs across the country, and we are fortunate to have one here in Yavapai County, which is greatly enriches all of our quality of life. So I'll be in the lobby with my catalogs and delighted to answer any questions you have for me. I'll turn it over to my colleague, Heather Mulcair.
Well, I think it's good afternoon now, right? So I get to share with you a few new initiatives and talk to you about some of the things that we already have in place. What we are looking at, so I wanted to give you a quick update on the culinary program at the Sedona Center. We made a few changes to the academic programming, and one of the things that we did was we added a baking and pastry certificate. So we have a fundamentals of culinary arts certificate, and now we've added a baking and pastry certificate. Those classes ran this school year. We had about 10 students that have been taking the classes, and they are 8-week courses. Actually, most of our culinary students come from the Prescott area. And so as we've been listening to what students need, and keep in mind, we're talking about the adult student, what they really liked was the 8-week classes. And they're good with coming in big blocks of time. So that's what we did, and it seems to be working well. We're also really looking at ways that we can utilize the kitchens at a much higher capacity than they've been used in the past. This is not our kitchen. This is the Santa Fe Cooking School kitchen, and they've been a great group of individuals to work with as we look at how to put together our own cooking school that is a really nice fit in a community that is heavily involved in tourism. So we will be looking at bringing in well-known chefs to offer different demonstration and activity classes, and that all folks in our community can participate, and it doesn't have a huge time commitment. I was also able to work on this really fun project this school year, but I wanted to start by sharing with you all, because I realized that maybe not everybody knows, Yavapai College has a very good relationship with Yavapai County High School partners. I actually started my career at Yavapai College in the early college program, which was a program that supports high school students taking college classes. It was really exciting a couple of years ago when Sedona Red Rock High School said, hey, we want to offer that block of general education courses to our students. So Sedona paid for the tuition, and they put a group of students into our classes, so they were taking college classes and getting high school credit for those courses. That was a huge cost savings to students. Parents were stoked. The students really liked it. And so we continue to partner with all Verde Valley schools in that same way. We're bringing that program over to the Camp Verde School District, and we're providing the instructors. So what we're really trying to do, again, is to listen to what each community needs and figure out how we can get to yes with what they're asking for. This is exactly that case. Cottonwood Oak Creek School District came to us and they talked to us a little bit about what's happening to our high school students, what dropout rates look like, and they really are passionate about making sure that their students have an idea of a career choice by the time they get into high school. So I don't know if you all know, but CTE, career and technical education, is not funded at the freshman level. So students don't really get to start exploring careers until they're 16, 17 years old. If I would have waited that long, I would have never have found my passion, which was to be an agriculture science teacher at Mingus for a long time. So it really is about getting the career exploration opportunity in front of students at a much earlier age. So what we did was we put together a slate of classes that their 8th graders could take. We're paying for it. It's our teachers. We provided the transportation, and each month we can have a different group of students. So we're doing classes in law enforcement, construction, culinary arts, nursing, and I'm lucky enough to teach the greenhouse management class. So we did criminal justice in January, huge hit. This was the day that they were learning how to use the radar and potentially scoped out the fact that their own school bus was running a little fast down Black Hills Drive. This week, they started the construction class with our very enthusiastic construction management teacher. It was day 2, and we gave them nail guns. And it went really, really well. Really well. I may not have really taken a breath until the end of class, but it went really, really well. Those kids were so pumped. The school called me this morning and said, hey, can we open up more of these classes? That's a really good kind of problem to have. I'm also lucky enough to get to work and support the new Skilled Trade Center program. This is a 10,000 square foot building on the Verde Valley campus. Our president and executive leadership met with our communities for about a 6-month period and asked what programming they wanted to see in this new building, and that's what got put in here. So in this building, we have construction, HVAC, heating and air conditioning, plumbing, and residential electric. Like I said, we have a very enthusiastic construction teacher, and in the fall semester, they worked on several projects, one of them being a facilities project on our campus. We have a new brewing program. I don't know if all of you are aware of that, but our brewing program needed a patio. And so our students built the retaining wall as a part of their curriculum around that brewing space, something that they are very proud of. At the end of this semester, as their final project, they framed out a tiny house. It's a 10 by 20 house. This semester, they will be finishing it out. So I was just in there yesterday. They've got the roof on. It's shingled, and they're ready to move on to insulation. The idea for us right now is that we will finish up that tiny house by the end of the semester and auction it off. We've also been very open and wanting our local contractors to come in to the building and be a part of what we're doing. So we've sent lots of emails, lots of phone calls, and invited all the different industries in. We've had a few folks take us up on it, and they come in on Saturdays, and they talk with our students about what it's like to work in the field, what jobs are available, what pay is, and what the perks are. And it's really an opportunity to recruit a student right into your company. This is our most recent contractor who came in. It was a great day. He was only supposed to talk for 15 minutes. He stayed for an hour, and then 15 students followed him out into the parking lot, and he talked to every single one of them, set up interviews, and in a month he had hired 4. Super happy with what we're putting together, and we look forward to doing more of what we're doing. We've also, you might have heard that Yavapai College is leading the front on 3D printing in the area. And currently, what we are focused on, we've started our very first 3D printing class It's over at the CTEC campus, which is by the airport in Prescott. We have the first pad poured at the Chino campus. We're waiting on the permit to pour the second pad. Quite honestly, our first printer's been a little challenging. It's given us a bit of a hard time. So we're working with a company called We Print Homes, and they have a Cobod printer, and they're testing out different mixes. So we've pushed our print plan timeline back to March because we're still in the troubleshooting phase. And so I just wanted to end today by sharing with you all that we are under the leadership of Dr. Red, who we are very lucky to have on board with us in this community. She has emphasized listening and hearing what people are needing from us. And so I just want to encourage you that if there's something that you see here today, whether it's programs in my area or Linda's area, please email us, call us, we'll come out and see you. We want to hear what it is that you need from us. And in case you're wondering what you might be able to do to help us, please spread the word that I'm looking for teachers. We really, really need trades teachers to continue these programs. We've got the building, we've got the equipment, we've got the students, we need the teachers. And with that, I hope that we do get to talk with you more later on. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Dean Red or her team? And if not, they'll be available out in the park, in the lobby as well. We couldn't be more excited as the Chamber of Commerce. I'll get you in one second. That our college is supporting our businesses and the workforce that they need and skilling them in those skill sets so that they can come right out of school and go to a well-paying job and make a living and contribute back to the community so they can live, work, play, and do business here in the greater Sedona Verde Valley. I think we have one question. So who's your question for, and for program in particular, do you know? 3D printing. So Heather, you're up.
Can you talk into the microphone? Oh, did it be off? Battery that I light on them. Go ahead, we'll repeat the question. So tell me off.
Try it now. So my question is related to 3D printing and alternative building technologies, small homes, less cost to the home to potentially be a solution for workforce housing. Question particularly was, what is your knowledge of the county
Yeah. I cannot answer that question completely. I can share with you that John Morgan is the dean that oversees this program, and he's involved in a lot of those discussions with the county level. We had a meeting with Camp Verde. We have visited with Sedona. There's a whole lot of conversation happening around us as well. I do know right now that one of our challenges with the tiny home currently with the county is that they are not currently super receptive to the tiny home idea. And so, I think that will change over time. I know in Cottonwood, we just recently met with a developer who is putting in, he has a tiny home subdivision going in Old Town Cottonwood and then another in Clarkdale. So I think things are changing. That really is all I know. John Morgan would be the most knowledgeable person about those types of discussions that are going to move things forward.
So just so everyone was aware of the question, it was how can these new technologies and these tiny homes help address our affordable housing and lack of housing problem, and what was the appetite of the city and the county for those types of projects. And so I would encourage everyone again this afternoon, there is a housing working group committee with the city from 3 to 5 o'clock. And this, among other things, will be on the topic of conversation. So last but not least, The League of Women Voters of Northern Arizona is here to speak to us. I have Maryann Kenney, who is the chair. And this is really critical right now because we are heading into an election season. I do want to recognize Councilor John Thompson was here with us as well this morning. And we have two gentlemen who are seeking city council election, both Pete Furman, who sits on planning and zoning, and Brian Foltz, who is a member of the chamber with his private business. So civic engagement is really important, and both seeking service in an office as well as your voice being your vote. And so Maryann is going to share with us how to make sure you are registered to vote, how you educate yourself on the issues. We've got home rule coming down the pike, obviously, which is a huge topic for this community. And so we welcome her today and turn you over the wheels to drive. Yes, ma'am.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Maryann Kenney, and I am the Vice President of the League of Women Voters of Northern Arizona, and I'm going to conclude today with just a few brief remarks on the League in your community. We are a national organization with a proud 100-year history of advocating and informing voters. We have a vision for democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. So what does the League look like today in your community? First of all, we have a rigorous, nonpartisan position. We never support or oppose candidates. We do study issues, and we do take positions on issues and policies that are important to us. We're active at the local, the state, and the national area. Here in Northern Arizona, we recently expanded our activities so we cover all of Greater Verde Valley and Flagstaff. We have over 100 members, and we've recently changed our name from League of Women Voters Greater Verde Valley to League of Women Voters Northern Arizona. We are the northernmost chapter of the League in Arizona. Our activities are varied in the community. We have voter services, we have voter education programs, we do advocacy, and we provide forums for people to discuss and interact with each other. Our voter services are probably what you know us best for. We run nonpartisan voter registration events, and we are willing to partner with organizations within the community to do this. We will soon be starting events at our local libraries. We'll be having tabling events twice a month throughout the Valley and Flag, where we will help people register and we will answer questions about voting. We also have an active volunteer who is going into the local high schools who will be addressing our high school students on the importance of voting, and will be helping them to register as well. We work with our county recorders to make sure that we have accurate information. We also hold candidate forums. And in the local area, we'd be looking at forums, for example, for city council member, for mayoral races, for county races. You may have seen some of our forums in the past. And this year, locally, we're going to be working very intensively with our national award-winning site, which is Vote 411. It's the League of Women Voters All Things Voting site. And we will be feeding into that site information about our local candidates and our local races to make sure that our residents can get information. We'll be preparing a set of fair and balanced questions that we will be submitting to all candidates concerning information that's important to us, and give them an opportunity to respond on the Vote 411 website. So keep aware of that. So we believe it's particularly important in this public environment to provide trusted information. So I have here for you 4 sites that have information that you can use and content that you can trust. And if you don't want to write these all down right now, they are all posted on our website on the Voter Information tab, lwvnaz.org. You can find all of these. So the first of these is Service Arizona, which is the motor vehicle department portal on this site. If you have a driver's license, you can update your information or you can register. And I'd like to point out that it's particularly important if you have moved. Even within the city of Sedona, you must update your voter registration. So every time you move, you have to update your voter registration. I mentioned the Vote 411 site. Keep a lookout here as the election season progresses, because we will be building out our local information and our local candidates. And this has very state specific. You can look for your particular area. Another really great site is my.arizona.vote. This is run by the Secretary of State's office, and there's a voter portal on which you can check your information. You can make sure you're registered. You can request to be on the early ballot, early mail voting list through here. You can also, and this is a really nice feature, once the election starts, if you've mailed in your ballot, you can go onto this site to see if they've received it and if they've recorded it. That's a really nice feature. And the last site I'd like to highlight is the AZ Clean Elections. This is a lesser known but wonderful site. This site was basically initiated by the voters of Arizona. The 1998 AZ Clean Elections Commission was established, and its purpose is to provide information and confidence in voting. And it's a great site. It has all sorts of information, student voting. It's got information on changes now where the permanent early voting list has been changed to the active early voting list. It's a wonderful site. It's nonpartisan. It's great trusted information. And then we are also very lucky here in this area to have two wonderful county recorders' offices, both in Coconino and Yavapai. Both of these offices are really dedicated to helping our voters, and you can always call them and get information. So another service we provide to the community is to provide voter education programs in areas that we hope are going to be of interest to our community. And here's a sampling, and I would like to say that pre-pandemic, we've had a wonderful partnership with Yavapai College. We've been somewhat more limited through the pandemic to some more Zooms, but we hope to be more engaged in the future on voter ed programs. And this is sampling of some of the topics we covered last year. We had a discussion on the Corporation Commission. We had a discussion on civil discourse. We had a program on water problems. We had a program on Black History Month. And we also have had a program on issues around our tribal communities. These are all free and open to the public. We also advocate, and we provide alerts to our members on important legislation moving through our legislature right now, and especially on voter rights and election processes. We educate our members to use the request to speak system at the legislature. We also lobby the legislature for our positions, but again, we never support or oppose candidates. We also provide a number of forums for our members and others just to interact with each other. We hold monthly book club discussions. We hold monthly talk sessions where people can talk about politics amongst each other in an open and respectful environment. We provide a monthly newsletter to our members, and we hold luncheons, or we have in the past, where we can learn and we can socialize. So I'd just like to conclude my remarks by saying that our events are almost always open to non-members. There's usually never a fee unless it's a luncheon. But if you would like to join us, we really welcome new members. We are open to men and women. And if you would like to learn more about us or join or renew your membership, you can go to lwvnaz.org and learn more. So thank you very much.
And it's my understanding, so I'm 1 year in, just like Robert Weber, that we as the Chamber in the past have helped in forums that you have held here for City Council members, and we would love to visit about that. because we, looking to create a positive business climate, would also love to hear from those who are running for election where they stand on some issues that are very important to us. So I believe we'll be convening on that.
Definitely keep that in mind.
And can you speak to the RTS system, so about registering for your ability to speak publicly at the state legislature? We have 1,600 bills approximately that have been introduced this session. The terminating date was just the other day. It's an inordinate number of bills. They're projecting that our 55th legislative session will go till June, possibly to July 1, the very last day that it could possibly go to have a budget approved for the new fiscal year. So I think there's a lot out there, and so your voice again is your vote. So
Yes, I could spend an hour or two on discussing what's going on in the Arizona legislature. I've been personally tracking 118 voter rights related bills. So Arizona is unique. It's the only state in the country that has a request to speak system and really a wonderful website where you can go in and track every aspect of a bill moving through the legislature. You can read the bill, you can follow it as it moves through the legislative system. You can even watch committee hearings most often after the fact. So the request to speak system is a system where you do need to establish a logon. That can only be done down in Phoenix at the Capitol, but we have volunteers who will help you do this. And with that system, you can go on to a specific bill, you look it up by bill number, and you can express whether you're thumbs up, thumbs down, neutral. You can actually request if you would like to be there to speak, although right now testimony is being limited to 1 minute. And you can also put in comments, which are part of the permanent record on that bill. So we're quite fortunate to have this system. It's really very unique in the country. And I'd be willing to talk to people who would like to get onto this. A lot of organizations throughout the state encourage their members to use this system and send out alerts to their members. And one thing that's important to know about this system is there are critical times to use it. Before a committee meeting, up to an hour before the committee meeting, hearing the bill is when you really want to use this. Once the committee meeting has gone, you've really passed your best opportunity. But there are opportunities in both the House and the Senate. We have a bicameral legislature, so something has to pass the House and pass the Senate. It has to go through committees in both. So there'll be opportunities to RTS on both sides of the House.
any other questions?
And I'll be out in the lobby afterwards, so if you have specific voting questions that I can answer for you, I will discuss one thing possibly that you may be interested in. You've heard a lot about the permanent early voting list has gone. It's now the active early voting list. Don't worry, at this point, if you were on the PEVL before, you're still on the EVL now. You have 4 election cycles to vote by mail before you will get a notice that you will no longer be on the EVL. So if you do vote by mail and continue to do so, you will still be able to vote by mail in the future.
I don't think I had my feet on the ground in Arizona for 3 days, and my sister had me at the Capitol doing the RTS system. So I'm in there. So with that, that concludes our program today. Thank you so very much. We're very grateful to the Sedona Oak Creek School District for allowing us to be here in the Sedona Performing Arts Center. It's a great venue. We will be back here in September of this year. Date still to be determined, but most likely 3rd to 4th week of September. And again, we're very grateful and thank our sponsor that allows us to host this event in APS. So have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you soon.